Hi, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, it's another late night meandering, I guess. Some of you may know that I worked for a company in North Hollywood that used to make replicas of movie props, things that had been used and become iconic in nature just by the sheer success of the movies that they were in. And I was involved in that company. I was the workshop manager for a while. That company actually went bust. It's a great pity because they had some fine people working for them and it could have been a great success. Just another one of those casualties of what can go wrong. Murphy's Law, it can go wrong. If it can go wrong, it may well do that. So I thought that that got me thinking about showing you some of the things that I actually used to make. That company, the Icon Authentic Replicas was the name of the company, and I actually learned a great deal while I was with that company, and I regret that I didn't actually try to learn more, because I worked with some great technicians in their field. They went on, lots of them had worked in movies before, actually on movies, and I wish that I'd paid more attention, but isn't that always the way? So here's a little walk through my still photographs from around that period where I was doing my own artwork, as well as some of the little things that I was involved in with that company. So, as I said, these are still photographs from a little portfolio that I've kept from those days. This is, I'll give you a little explanation of what you're looking at. This was actually quite a big headboard for a queen-size bed. So that's all in solid wood that's been carved and then hand painted. Actually, a friend of mine, Roger, actually painted this for me. I painted all of that in, and he did some airbrushing on the thing. So this, I didn't. Now, important to say that I didn't make this, but I did assemble it, and I worked at the time that I was there. The team that used to be on the robots actually left to go and work on a movie, and we had two robots. This, you may know, you may probably recognize it, but this is the endoskeleton from Terminator. It was a very fine piece of work, 150 pieces, and that was quite a job putting that together. And I worked with another guy that helped me there. We helped each other. So right there I'm working at assembling the whole thing and putting it into the T2 3D ride, which went into Universal Studios. And that's me at Universal Studios. At Universal Studios at the City Walk, and we actually installed that actually where the souvenir shop was. So now this was made. This is a picture of the ceiling in the actor comedian Drew Carey's house in the Hollywood Hills, and I painted that ceiling and helped to install. I spearheaded the actual installation of fiber optics into that ceiling, which actually came out as if it were, if you can see it there, that's a blacklight painting, and I did a 900 square foot mural that was based on that. And here's another shot of that. Now that was invisible while the ambient light was turned on. During the day you didn't see any of that, you just saw the plain ceiling, which you saw in the first picture, although in the first picture it actually did have a very nice, that's in its plain form there, but it actually had a really nice faux painted ceiling on there. But then when night time came, darkness fell, and that was what you saw. Now that's a good shot there of the ceiling. That's actually on the roof of the house, and if you look really very hard, or if you've got zoom, you can look in there and see the fibre optics that were put in from the ceiling, and then the roof was put on last. So that's what happened there. Now this was for I made this for a company that rents movie props, and that was one of the consoles that they gave me the conceptual drawings for this, and I engineered it so that it actually would work out. There's another one that I did for them. This was another console. This was this very complex piece of work, this, because there are no, other than the apertures for the video screens that would go in later, there were no, every one of those angles is a compound angle, sloping in more than one way. So very complex way of doing that. And at that time I had the help of Becky Babb, who was a very clever lady who does sculptures in Korean. Very talented lady, and I learned a lot from that lady because she had worked with templates, and so that was a good relationship for that. Let me see, I also, helping me on that was my son Luke, helping us, and all three of us worked, and we produced, for this particular one, we produced about 11 of those, and I believe we produced about the same for this one, although this was a much more interesting piece, which you will see later. This one was actually in a movie, something like, I think it was something like Firefly or Firefox, sci-fi movie, and you saw it in there. This is a console that I did for a recording studio in Fort Myers, and it was done in a sci-fi style, and then it was painted as was this piece here, which was for the keyboard. This opened out, and in the front there you have all of the places for the equipment that went in, all amps and stuff like that. These are small pieces that I used to make. I made this for a sample that was to, which was, I actually called this a time capsule, and we put some pieces in there which were designed to get us some special effects work for that company. It didn't work, but nevertheless this was a nice piece, and it was made to look like metal, as was this part here. And that one there is a small dinosaur that I sculpted, which was a favourite piece of mine. I actually didn't sell those. I maybe sold a couple of those, but then I used that piece to give it to people who I considered were special to me and that had helped me. This is a 25th century scorpion robot baseball catcher. It's all made in wood. Supposedly would catch the ball in this pad, and then it's actually it's a static display, but it would shoot the ball back to the picture. And there was a little story attached to this. I did this for fun. And here's some more pictures. It actually was quite a complex piece, all in wood, plywood and pine. It all looks articulated, but the good thing about this was that it actually it actually was supported by the legs, had to be lifted very, very carefully. This piece is still in Fort Myers at a friend of mine who runs a gallery. I called this piece 9/11. I did this after 9/11, and it was supposed to be that the United States, which came together in a show of unity that they hadn't had for a long time. You got the American flag there, and it was supposed to be the soft curves of the American flag over the steel riveted plates of each of the states under the protective wing of the American eagle. You can see there that New York, which suffered the great tragedy of 9/11, and it's shielded by the great American eagle. And there's a close-up of how that was done. And that was a robotic eagle. I was into robots at that time. I'd like to do fun things. This is let me see, you can see that this is a carved melted ice cream spilled Coke on top of this little cabinet. And this little cabinet is actually a kid's bedside, a nightstand. And this was inspired by my love of a cartoon strip which was Calvin and Hobbes. And Calvin always had this nightstand that had all kinds of stuff rammed into the drawers. Now that is the door of the cabinet, but when it's closed, kind of looks like the doors, like the drawers are all broken down and out of whack, but actually they're false drawers, and they put onto that opening, hinged opening door. That was a fun piece. Nothing greatly interesting here. I did a few pieces like this, which were that one, obviously the Oxford School of Music. No prizes for guessing what that one was for. And this one, this was actually done for a company that used to go out and do surveying. It was a surveying company. Quite highly detailed and special finishing. They offered a prize for choosing the title for this, and it was titled Unforgotten Times. Very three-dimensional, all in carved wood. And that has a kind of a forced perspective on it, which makes it look as if you're being pulled into the picture. All times. You can see that all of the posts actually came out of the picture in what I called forced perspective. A little bit like the fisheye. Now this was for a company that did, actually that's what the one where I made the console for them. And that was taken from the design that they had on their card, and I did it in a three-dimensional relief and then special painted. This one was a Gothic crib. Women loved this but said that they'd never put their baby into it. This one for a lady that got me into a house. Sounds strange. Sounds like I was a cat burglar. She was a broker, and she managed to get me into a house when I had very little money to put down as a deposit. Let me see. Not of any great interest. Now this was a triptych. Three pieces that were quite robotic again, metal look. And there's the third one. Looks like the boiler of a great ship or something. Now these, I was working on the Drew Carey's house at the time, and I showed him these pictures. He said he was willing to look at my portfolio, and out of all of these pictures, these three pieces he really liked and said that he would buy. Unfortunately, his designer, his interior designer, didn't see where she could fit them into her designs, so lost the sale there. Oh boy, nearly lost the camera as well. So, okay, I'm back in action again. That's the headboard again. Okay, now this is a fun piece. This is a biplane with two little pilots there. You can see the pilots with their hands over in terror, and they're flying out of a two-dimensional painting into the third-dimensional world, and they're emerging there. I think I left that piece as well in Florida. That's more, gives you more of an idea about what that carved headboard really looked like. This I kind of got inspired by the fun, whimsical look of the Beauty and the Beast movie, and I looked there, and that's the kind of thing that it looked like it might have walked out of the movie, but actually it was a snail mail cabinet. So I took the design from the US mail and I made it into snail mail, and that was it. I sold the predecessor of this, which wasn't really not nearly as nice as this one, sold for I think $1,000. Not very much money really, not for the amount of work. This is a pair of doors that I did for the same company as the Relief. All of their products were to do with horses, as you can see. This is all Relief work. Oh boy. Well, there's a lot going on. Okay, I'm back again. I don't know what happened outside, but the dogs were fighting. Probably a sex tourist making the rounds, trying to get in on the action. Maybe one of our dogs is in heat. This is this is the clay model for our friend Elton John. Somebody asked me would I make them a piano player. They had a player piano, very rich house, player grand piano, and I suggested to them, why don't you have a celebrity? And they had some Elton John tapes which they used to put on, and here's Elton John, and that was him. So there he is in a pair of trial glasses, a much younger Elton John and a slimmer one too, and there's a detail. Now I've lost my time. Now this was actually a piece that I did and never quite finished because I left the UK, but this was to be a sleeping dinosaur under a coffee table. You can see the cross there is meant to support the glass top so that you actually see the dinosaur. I really like this piece, but never got to finish it. Sometimes you'll get a piece of work and that happens. There's the snail mail box again. That's another piece that I really like. Some of these pieces I would love to have here in the Philippines, but don't. Now that's the full show of the console that I really quite liked. Very interesting piece this, where you see that plywood fill in when it went to the company, which is Modern Props. Modern Props still has my work on their front page. You can go to modernprops.com and you'll see that that console that I showed you at first, the one that I did several of. And here gives you an idea of how many I did for that. Kind of looks like the Stormtroopers, doesn't it, from Star Wars? That one in the middle, look. These were very enjoyable pieces. Now this one is a favourite piece of mine. The owner of Icons replicas, I made this piece for him, and it was for displaying, as you can see, the Rocketeer helmet, which was a replica that they did at the time. And that cabinet kind of reflects the kind of thing that you have, but the door, it's a concealed door. You actually can't see that door until you look, and then it opens kind of like a big heavy vault door, but of course it's not big and heavy because it's made of wood and then a special paint finish. Here's another small sculpture, baby dinosaur made up like the steed that some prehistoric warrior would have had. I think everybody can guess what that is without me telling you. It's an almost Egyptian-esque reptile. I like dinosaurs, but I like to make them whimsical, give them a character, and that was a very pensive looking three-horned Triceratops. More than 3 horns. This was the other one that I never got to finish. Never got to finish this. This was to have been a flying rocking horse taken from a movie, I think Sinbad. I think it was called Sinbad the Sailor, and there was a mechanical flying horse, and that's what this one was going to be. This would have been, if I could have afforded it, it would have been chromed. It would have been cast in fiberglass, and then it would have been chrome plated. Would have been quite a piece. Would have had wings there into the little slots, and it would have been a mechanical flying horse. That's a better view of the dinosaur. And this one, oh, famous Louis. And there's a version of it that looks a little bit scary, done in a bronze finish. It wasn't bronze, it was actually cast, but as I say, I used to do different paint finishes. Well, I think that's as much as you can probably bear. That's a little trot through some of my portfolio of some of the work that I did, which might be of interest to people. It's another side that it's another aspect of what I do or what I've done in my life, which is not particularly well known, unless of course you've been through to my Facebook page and seen some of the pictures on there. There's a lot more to that portfolio. I'll have to remember where I got up to and take you through the rest of it some other time. Thanks for looking in. This is A Foreigner in the Philippines.